I'm gonna be real with y'all. I would have died very early on in this movie. What is going on, everyone? My name is RJ from the Silver Site, and today I'm here to review Escape Room Tournament of Champions, which is the sequel to the 2019 movie Escape Room. Before we get into the review, I want to thank everybody for stopping by, and also want to encourage you to hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell so you don't miss out on any content here at the Silver Site Network. Now that that's out the way, let's get into it. So Escape Room Tournament of Champions is centered around Zoe and Ben, who set out to take down Minos, which is the company responsible for the deadly escape rooms, but they end up finding themselves back in the games against their will, but this time they're joined by other sole survivors of other escape rooms. I consider myself to be a pretty intelligent guy. However, under the amount of pressure that they were under, and with the intensity of the rooms, stick a fork in me. It's a wrap. Sayonara. I'm done. I'm out. It's done. What I enjoyed about this film is how exciting it felt. Now, the rooms in the first movie were definitely intense, but I felt like they kind of upped the ante with the rooms in this second movie. And what I mean by that is these rooms were terrifying. And although there were fewer rooms in this movie, the consequences for failing those rooms were a lot greater than that of the first. Greater, I meant gruesome. The rooms seemed to have a lot more detail and a lot more diabolical thought put into them. The sense of urgency to make it from one room to the other, the things they had to overcome, figure out, crazy. Definitely would have died. Now, my next point, something that I like, can also be considered a bit of a con. I've seen a couple of people speak about how this kind of was a detriment to the film, but I kind of saw it as a pro because of the type of movie that we're dealing with. What do I mean by that? Let me explain. At this point, this franchise is kind of going the purge route where the world is established, the rules are established, everything's been laid out for you, and we understand what it is, right? So with that being said, we don't necessarily need to connect to the characters. All we need to do is get to the root of the story, the meat of the story, and go from there, which is what I liked. We're here for the escape room. We're here to see them escape these crazy challenges and see them get to the next room. We know the majority of them are going to die, maybe all of them will die. We know what's going on. Let's jump right into the story. A lot of times these movies that have that there can only be one, or soul survivor movies or battle royale movies, they have this long kind of setup to where they're introducing you to the character. Even in the sequel, they have to reintroduce the character or they have to introduce new characters. But Escape Room Tournament of Champions does not do this. They kind of jump right into the story. I wouldn't say right into the story, but they do not take long to set up the story because they know why we're here, which is a good thing. A lot of times in a sequel, you shouldn't have to set up so much backstory of the characters. Now, I do understand how this could be a con, and I'll touch on that later. But for me, this is something that I did enjoy. So there's a little bit of duality in how this operates, and I'll get to that later on in my review. But the fact that they jumped into the meat of the story just kind of really helped with the pacing and kind of really made it more intense, and it just made it much more exciting to watch. I found myself on the edge of my seat a lot during this movie, and I appreciated the fact that this was a consistent, steady pace that they kept it throughout the movie. There were very few, rest moments, dead spots, or kind of opportunities for characters to rest. And in doing so, you don't really give your audience a time to rest because mentally we're with the characters that we're watching. So that's something that I did appreciate, and that stems from them getting to the meat of the story. Tension in this movie was out of this world. Now, a few seconds ago, I just sat here and told you guys that get into the meat of the story was something that I like. Put a pin in that because now I'm going to explain why that's not always a good thing. Stay with me. I promise I'm not backtracking. All right, so boom. Something that bothered me in this movie is I really didn't get a chance to connect with the characters. Now, that's not to say that they should have taken the time in the beginning of the film to reestablish the world, kind of introduce us to the characters and so forth. But I felt like during the movie, even though it was fast-paced and the characters did have very little time to to adjust to their surroundings and to kind of rest, I felt like we could have gotten some kind of flashbacks to help us connect with the characters a little more. I felt like they tried their best just to kind of cover all bases with the characters and hope that we would relate to them based off of our walks of life and who they identified as or who we identified them to be. We had a white female, we had a priest, we had a person of color, there was a black woman, a white male, and I just felt like we really didn't get a chance to connect with them on a human level. More so, they kind of tried to just cover all the bases and get one of everything in order to, have the audience connect with them. And I felt like that was something that definitely could have been written a little differently, a little better, to kind of make us, more invested in the characters. Because the whole point of this movie is that people are going to die. And when they die, your audience has to feel something. And when the characters were dying one by one, or whatever you want to call it, I really didn't feel too much of anything, because I didn't have time to connect with them. Not necessarily time to connect with them, because, there are characters that, you connect with in the beginning of the movie, and sometimes it takes you to the end to kind of humanize a character. But for me, I didn't feel any connection with the characters that died, because they didn't really give us much backstory other than what their escape room was. And that's not to say that when a character dies, you should feel sad like how you felt when Black Widow fell to her death in Endgame, or when Tony Stark snapped and he died. I'm not saying that we should have Endgame level sadness when a character in Escape Room dies, when they're destined to die. However, what I am saying is I shouldn't be like, damn, that's sad. I feel like deaths in these kind of movies should linger with you. When Rue died in the Hunger Games, I kept thinking about that for the rest of the movie, even though it was shortly thereafter. I kept thinking about that. Even in the sequel, I kept thinking about it. It always stays with me. And I feel like when a character died, I moved on mentally to the next room with everybody else, when I should have been at least, somewhat sad that this character died. I couldn't relate to anyone, because they didn't give us time or any information about the character other than what their prior Escape Room theme was. Like I said, these deaths in these battle royal movies, or there can only be one. Some of these deaths will linger on with you, some won't. But in this case, none of the deaths lingered on with me. I moved on to the next room when they left the dead person behind. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. All in all, I definitely enjoyed Escape Room Tournament of Champions. If you are going to check it out, because it is in theaters, if you are going to check it out, please wear a mask and be safe. Follow all COVID procedures, protocols, and all that jazz. Make sure you stay safe, because we want you happy, healthy, and here. With that being said, my name is RJ from The Silver Sight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Follow us on all social media. The links will be down below. With that being said, later days.